20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
When you think of the Daytona 500, you think of drivers hoisting the big trophy. You think of the upsets from Derek Cope to Trevor Bayne. You think of the big one, or the big ones when it comes to wrecks. But the 2012 Daytona 500 is known for one thing: the fireball.
Visually, it was amazing.
The fireball in Daytona, yeah, that was pretty wild.
I knew that was not good.
The race, delayed to Monday night because of rain, all of a sudden was in a delay with 40 laps left because the track was on fire. Literally. If you kids are too young to remember or have only seen a brief highlight, let me tell you what that was. It was like en fuego.
I remember getting on the radio and saying, guys, the racetrack's on fire.
For a brief moment, few people knew what happened. Michael McDowell knew, as he trailed behind Juan Pablo Montoya, who was having suspension issues and was driving relatively fast under caution to see if they had been fixed. McDowell could clearly see they had not.
Yeah, I saw him go into it. I was coming off of 2 as he was going into 3 where he hit there, so I was pretty far from it, but could see it all kind of happen. It was crazy. I remember just seeing a fireball pulling to the flat and trying to avoid it.
Mike Joy, the play-by-play announcer for the race, he knew Montoya had that suspension problem and was able to put together what had happened relatively quickly.
Now, under caution, Juan Pablo Montoya has crashed and gone aflame.
Holy cow, what happened? Larry, he just slammed into the jet dryer. I think he slammed into the jet dryer.
And the car brakes, won't steer, and he slides up the track and into the back of that surplus helicopter jet engine on a trailer used to dry the racetrack.
He wanted to see if they had fixed that suspension. Well, there was the jet dryer, and it soon became obvious they hadn't. And we saw the big fireball. It's like, what in the world is that? And it was Montoya. Nobody knew what to think. Nobody knew what to do.
After the initial impact resulted in some fire, the spilled jet fuel running down the track suddenly ignited.
Oh my gosh.
And all that spilled jet fuel found something hot to ignite it.
You know, Juan, we heard you say in your radio transmission that you felt a vibration. What in the heck happened?
Well, I told him I left the pits of the pit stop and I felt a really weird vibration. We were with the pack. Every time I got in the gas, the rear was like I could feel the rear really squeezing, and I got on the brakes, travel up. And while I was telling the spotter to have a look how the rear was moving, the car just turned right.
McDowell said as he first drove by, he could feel the heat. He wasn't the only one. Current Cup rookie Todd Gilliland, 11 years old at the time, was sitting atop the pit box watching his dad in the race.
You could feel the heat from the jet dryer on the pit box. You know, when you felt the heat, and everyone just was really confused at that exact moment. No one really knew what happened.
Drivers were told to stop on the backstretch. Some were confused. Many were obviously concerned that a tragedy had unfolded in front of their eyes.
And that fireball completely behind me in the rearview mirror went off. I thought a plane crashed back there, I really did. Huge fireball, took up the whole sky, and oh my gosh, it was scary.
I remember seeing the giant fireball and then being like, what the heck just happened? And you know, they tell you on the radio that literally Montoya just hit the jet dryer, and you're like, are you silly? Are you serious right now? Like, how the hell did that happen?
Well, when I saw the fireball, I was concerned somebody had died. And when I got the message that, you know, nobody was seriously hurt, that was a sense of relief for sure.
I just love those guys walking down toward turn 3. They're like, I got to see what's happening. Is that track gravel? Is this race over? Are we going to be able to keep going?
You kids might not know that it's rare for drivers to be hanging out with each other on the track during a red flag. Typically, they are brought down pit road and hang with their teams. But NASCAR had stopped the race so quickly because of the fire, drivers had lingered by their cars on the backstretch. Some chatted with each other as they didn't know whether the race would resume. Some had foot races to the portable bathrooms.
I just remember driving by the scene of the accident and seeing the track was on fire. It was the weirdest thing because you're sitting there like, well, what do we do now? Like, how long is this going to take? And the track's melting.
And there was a tweet, a big tweet, thanks to Brad Keselowski. You kids probably remember that. NASCAR had a rule about no electronics in the car, but that had not been interpreted to include cell phones at the time. So Keselowski, the cool kid who loves his toys, he had his phone in his fire suit pocket.
I just remember being blown away that in the middle of our biggest race of the year that there was a fireball on the racetrack and that we had to stop. I'd never seen anything like it. I happened to have my phone on me and I took a picture of it and I thought, well, I'll keep that and that'll be something to remember forever. I'll tell my kids about it.
Why tell your kids when you can tell everyone right away what you are seeing?
Then as I was sitting in this long red flag, like, well, maybe I ought to just tweet it out. I had this new thing at the time called Twitter, and so I'd never dreamed it would be as big as it was, but I'm glad people enjoyed it.
NASCAR later in the year began fining drivers for having a phone in the car. But the question after Keselowski took that photo was, would the race ever resume? Dave Blaney, the father of current Cup driver Ryan Blaney, he was in the lead. Landon Cassill was second. It was a huge upset in the making.
I thought, well, maybe they'll call it, and I looked up at the leaderboard and Dave Blaney was leading. I was like, well, they ain't gonna call this now.
Ryan Blaney, who had to go home to go to school, was sitting in front of his television upset he might not get to celebrate in victory lane with his father, but he was hopeful that his dad would be able to call himself a Daytona 500 champion.
Unfortunately, it went back racing for us. I wanted the track to be burned up to the dirt.
His father wasn't so sure.
It's neat to talk to Dad about it. You know, he's always back and forth on, I don't know if I would have wanted to win it that way. He was like, that would be the biggest asterisk ever in the history of sports. I'm like, well, they still couldn't take it away from you. Your name would still be on the trophy.
Thanks to a 2-hour cleanup effort that included the use of some Tide brought from across the street, the race did resume.
And here we go.
I don't know about you, but I'm a little uptight about this.
You kids, if you remember the fireball, you might not remember who won that race.
Kenseth, he runs out of time. Matt Kenseth wins the Daytona 500.
But the image of that race, it won't be Matt Kenseth. The image of that race will always remain the fireball on NASCAR's most famous track.
Great job, Juan. You hit the jet dryer. You're not supposed to do that.
Hey race fans, thanks for watching our video. For all NASCAR on Fox News, content, and the best clips from Fox Sports, be sure to follow and subscribe to our channel.